Hi, this is Megan.
Hi, Megan. This is Jessica from Icon. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good.
It
Good.
looks,
I mean, as good as can be, right? A lot
yeah,
going on, but
yeah. So we have a lot of people. I see they're starting to connect. Yasmin will join us momentarily.
okay. And then I have a deck to share.
Yeah, so that shouldn't be a problem. And you got the questions from the audience.
I did. I was going to go through the deck first. It answers probably half of the questions, and then we can go through and see any I missed.
Yeah, sounds good.
And we have about an hour. Is that correct?
Yeah, we have an hour.
So, yeah.
We are, this is recorded, and then if it's okay with you, we'll put it on the YouTube channel afterwards.
Sure.
Okay, perfect.
Just going to make sure my screen share is working.
Yep.
Oh, I have to do it in full mode, I guess. That works.
Oh, trick actions. Wow, interesting.
لا ده
So,
I love all the backgrounds.
Michael.
Hi.
Hey.
Marketing in the new world, right?
Okay, I'll get one too.
We need to be creative in our backgrounds.
Meagen, good to see you again,
Yes.
Michael.
Good.
So,
Okay, so I think we should start. We're gonna have a few people join us. So first of all, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, depending on where you are in the world. Pretty exciting. Meagen, it's great to have you here with us.
Thank
For
you.
those who don't know, Meagen is now Chief Marketing Officer for Trip Actions, focused on delivering an amazing customer experience while driving worldwide awareness for Trip Action. And we're very curious to hear how is that changing now and what creative ideas you have for this new situation. She spent more than 20 years in high tech, was the Chief Marketing Officer of MongoDB, and VP of Demand Generation in DocuSign. Recently named top 50 most retweeted by mid-sized marketers. And she's a great friend of Icon. She's been with us before. She's speaking with the batches and everybody loves her. And I'm very happy that you're here with us. Meagen has a presentation for us and there will be opportunity for people to ask questions. Do you want them, is it okay if they interrupt you in
קפי, אני
between?
מקשיבה לשיחה, בסדר? טוב.
I want to ask everyone other than Meagen to put themselves on mute. And if not, Jessica, who's the host, is going to put you on mute. And if you feel like putting a video on, we like it because it's like, it's the least we have. It's a little more personal. Show us your crazy virtual backgrounds. And I also have some questions that people sent before, but if nobody asks, we'll ask them. So Meagen, the floor is yours.
All right, let's dive in. Definitely interesting times for all of us. But what I thought I would do is thank you for the amazing intro. One of the things I also want to talk a little bit beyond being an operator at multiple companies and a public CMO at MongoDB, I've also advised more than 20 companies, 7 of which have been acquired in the last 2 years and 3 of which have gone out of business. So I've seen it on both sides. And through that, there's certainly pattern recognition, but also an understanding that every company is a little bit different. But there's always something to learn from all the different companies that are out there. About 2 years ago, Stanford GSB did a business case study on the efforts that we did at MongoDB. And this was on myself and our CRO at the time, Carlos Delatorre. He's also our CRO now at TripActions. So different business, different audience, but we're still, writing the way we look and market and sell and go to market. And today, the story I'm going to go through is a case study that's really just occurred in the last 4 weeks. As you know, all of us are figuring out this period that we're in that's so different than anything I've seen. I've been through recessions, but nothing like this. And for those that don't know, TripActions, this is what the case study is going to be on. So we're a new model for corporate T&E, travel and expense management. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how we've had to pivot very quickly in our messaging and enablement and pipeline, and as a company. So I'll go through that. Let's see here. So as we know, we've all found ourselves really, I would say, unprepared in the midst of this COVID-19 crisis. Not something any of us expected, and certainly something that we're adjusting to daily and figuring out. And I will say every about 48 hours, we're doing something new, learning something new, and pivoting very quickly. And of course, on top of it, on top of this health crisis is an economic one, where we've got sharply declining pipeline and revenue that you see out in the markets. You've got cost control. CFOs are really trying to figure out what we do around preserving cash, looking at our expenses. Of course, we're remote. Here we are all on Zoom. How does that impact productivity, layoffs, furloughs, recession planning? And then, of course, if you're in marketing, massive cuts to marketing budgets and headcount. And one of the things that I think a lot about is I saw a Latin proverb that was, if there's no wind, row. And so all of us right now are rowing very fast to make sure that we keep our businesses moving forward and afloat, and that we learn and we do what we can within our control. And that's certainly the case. Trip Actions, really in the last 4 weeks, we focused immediately on our core. I think any CEO of any size business should be thinking about these 4 things. 1, customers out of the gate, for sure. You need to focus on what your customers need in the moment, what they're going to need moving forward. You know, I've seen a lot of activity on Twitter around renewals and retention and what that's going to look like in this new world, and anyone in the SaaS model. We are a usage-based model at Trip Actions. So revenue comes in when people book travel trips, or they do run expenses with their corporate card. We have a corporate Trip Actions Liquid. So immediately and of course we're in business travel. So as you can imagine, 3 or 4 weeks ago, the first things we were starting to hear from customers and travel managers was shutting down of Asia, and finding out where their travelers were, what they needed to do, how the virus was progressing. And we watched that go across the world to parts of Europe, to all of Europe, to the UK, to North America, et cetera. And so what I'll talk to is a little bit on the product side. It really started thinking about our travel managers, how to quickly pivot the product and build what they need in real time. And then how do you launch and message that quickly? And then that really ties into making sure you have product market fit for the current environment. We have always given many things to our customers around travel, booking, travel agents, and visibility, but what data do they need today with the times that are happening with today? I'll talk to that. Of course, cash preservation is huge. Actually, about 3.5 weeks ago, my dad, he's 74, but is a tech veteran and has gone through many recessions, and saw the news. Trip Actions hit the news a few times, and he texted me and he said, "Love cash more than your mother." And he said that was a saying that they had in the last, I guess, 30, 40 years for startups, that cash really matters. And in fairness to him, he's divorced. So I do love my mother, and I do understand and appreciate the need for businesses to survive. You have to have cash through this period. And then, of course, your employees, making sure as they're working from home, as they're figuring out this new normal, making sure you're taking care of them. They have the tools they need to be productive, to have their head in the game, and to keep rowing. So all of that has really mattered. The other thing that leads into the case study is our customers cared a lot about traveler and health and safety. We always had a traveler map so they could quickly see where their travelers were at. And we had ability to see where future travel was. But what they needed to do, and what we learned, was that they needed to be able to blacklist folks from booking new travel until we could get our arms around the situation. And I do remember a Friday 3 weeks ago, our CEO, Ariel, and head of product, Anik, and all of us coming together and saying, here's what we're hearing from our customers. Here's what we need to go build. Meagen, I need you and the marketing team and the sales team to launch this on Monday, and to make sure, and to the CSMs, all our customer support reps, to make sure our customers are aware of what we're building. And they built an integration over the weekend to the CDC. As you know, back what we know from the CDC, we had level 1, 2, and 3 countries that were dealing with the virus. And the level 3, you certainly did not want travelers booking travels to level 3, probably 2, and then at some point level 1, and around the entire world. So we were building this out quickly, and from a marketing standpoint, we were getting ready to get the materials and enable the sales team with that. And then there was other things that were coming in to make sure we could mitigate risk and pull reports for them. And as it started to progress, and you started to need to cancel travel, you need to be able to collect and monitor your credits. So if you think about this as a CEO, what are the things my customers need? I need to focus on what they need now. And then as a marketing organization, I need to message what they need now. And so here's this a sense of, you know, they needed a coronavirus report and CDC integration. As I said, we built it over the weekend. They needed to come into the tool. You can't just create something and send them multiple things. Your customers are going into one admin, one dashboard. They need it all in one place, and it needs to be actionable. What can they do once they have this information? And what they cared about was protecting their travelers and stopping them from going into harm's way. And then certainly as it started to shut down, blacklisting. And We built the engineering team. I think obviously one of the benefits of being a startup and an agile company is that your engineers are able to build very quickly. You're on modern systems. You know, Trip Actions, I say, was born after the iPhone, so all around the consumer experience. And so our engineering and products ability to quickly pivot and build and take it to market, I think is huge in today's environment. You've got to be agile. So our approach to our customers and the market had to pivot immediately. As a CMO, what did I think about out of those four things is, one, I had to focus my team on continuing to drive revenue. Like I said, we're a usage-based model. So what are we doing to drive revenue and also cut costs? We immediately had, which you'll see reflect in what we did from a marketing standpoint, where we cut costs, budget cut about 50%, and headcount was cut 50%. And so these were my top three and have been my top three priorities in the last 4 weeks. Messaging and our narrative, what we were taking to market, really matters. You can't afford to be tone deaf. The sentiment changed dramatically over the last few weeks. 2, sales and your CSM enablement. As I said, making sure you take care of your customers and they're aware of the tools and what you have to help them through the situation and to be with them in the future. And your sales team was currently in and is in mid-sales deals. What are we doing to enable them with the right messaging? And then sales pipeline, building net new. What are we doing to drive demand in a world where people all of a sudden extremely disrupted, were sent home, working from home, not online, not on the web, maybe not looking for the solution that you have at that time. So what do you do to get back in front of them in a way that makes sense for what the mode and mood they're in? And so if I talk about messaging, and that really leads into sales enablement, because the messaging and positioning you create, your sales team takes to market, as well as you and your marketing organization. So let's look at our website 4 weeks ago. And I asked, what's wrong with this picture? Well, the best experience in business travel was what we had everywhere at the time, you know, when we still are very focused on our travelers and their experience. And we know if you have a good experience, you're going to use the tool, you're going to book the tool, you're going to work with our travel agents, and that really matters. But in the last 4 weeks, nobody's having a good experience in travel, right? They're stranded somewhere. They're trying to get home. They don't know what the rules are. They don't know if they're going to have to be quarantined. Nobody is having a good experience in business travel. And there was this realization that, wow, I need to go audit everything we've done in the last, I've been with the company a little over a year. What have we done in the last year? Where's this messaging at? And what do I need to update? And what matters to our customers now? And what mattered to our customers was traveler safety and security. And as you brought in the CFO, controlling your costs. And T&E is a large cost. And so we quickly pivoted our messaging to become more around the power to manage business travel and your expenses and the safety. And what you see on the right is all the content that needed to be audited and rewritten. And we did it in about 5 days, I would say 15-hour days and over the weekend. The team quickly looked at our sales decks, our talk tracks, our training for sales. Of course, we were onboarding and ramping reps. Our MDR, which is those that are reps that are taking the inbound leads that we have coming in. How are they talking to, setting up demos? What are they highlighting? Our value prop, all our SDR tracks and our outreach sequences. We had over 60 different sequences of multiple emails that had to be audited and rewritten for this, for the new era of what we're today, and not be tone deaf. You can't be talking about this great traveler experience and cool and hip and all of that because the tone had changed. We audited our entire website. We had over 100 different emails in our nurture programs. We've built out 12 different nurture tracks based on your persona, whether you're a CFO, procurement, HR, travel manager. And what came forward in this time was certainly risk and compliance officers started to get involved because of employee safety. And they started to audit systems, and they needed a lot of information that were in systems like travel management systems. And so creating nurture programs and educational. Nurture is really not about selling as much as about education and getting rid of the hurdles that a buyer or a committee of buyers needs to understand before they make a decision. And so risk and compliance officers need to understand. HR started to get a lot more involved in the last 4 weeks because of employee safety and needing to understand where their employees were. So all of these had to be audited, rewritten, and then reset up within our systems. We use Marketo. Social media, all our handles were about the best experience. So we had to audit Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. Everything was rewritten. Graphics were redone. Social distancing in the early days, it was, you know, and still now it's obviously about social distancing, but we started to see things in the market like people were doing things with their logos. We separated our circle and square, and we had a message out there about, you know, separating our circles and squares for a few weeks to really support social distancing, because before, you know, we're all about bringing, you know, the in-person connection, bringing people together, the circles and squares. So trying to think through creatively, how could we support the public service announcements that were out there, and how could we be part of addressing the issues respectfully and not being tone deaf. And so we did a lot, and we still do that, a lot of that around social media. All our paid ads had to be rewritten and audited because the paid ads were no longer the right tone for the environment. Our display ads, we had newsletters going out to our different tech pubs like Skift and BTN, and they were no longer relevant. The week before a lot of the movement changed with the coronavirus, we launched a new product called TripActions Liquid, which is corporate travel card. And our tagline was, because of the liquid, was "Don't you wish business travel was this smooth?" And it was a play on liquid, but at this time, like I mentioned before, travel was not smooth. And so we really need to think about, actually, it's about spending with diligence. It's for CFOs, it's your controlling your cost. We have people working now from home that need to have cards and expense items. Maybe you're expensing a monitor from home, you're expensing essential things, or you're expensing lunch, depending on your policies. And so really, our products did all these things, but we needed to highlight what the value was for today and pivot and make sure that we were explaining the right value prop for the time. And so that was updated magazine ads, newsletter copy. Anyway, as you can see, there was a lot of things. And I would say for anyone right now, you need to look at and audit your messaging across all of these channels and make sure it's not tone deaf. Make sure it's aligned around the right story, that you're enabling all the players between marketing, sales, CSMs, partners, to be putting the right message out there. And other things is, you know, the features that you're highlighting matter. And we really started to focus on our duty of care features and our quotes and people that we started to use. You know, we built new product and we launched it so quickly. Our customers were willing. First of all, we were solving a major problem issue that they had. And so talking with them and their quotes and getting their permission to be able to share how they were using us mattered a lot as part of our updating of materials and what we put out there. And really that all of this was part of sales enablement and making sure that they had the tools they need. And so of course, it was the new path forward for us for travel and expenses, T&E management, and making sure they had what they need to have the right conversations. Because as you can imagine, and probably many of you, you're reaching out to who you want to talk to and they're going, oh my goodness, this is a crazy time. I cannot talk to you right now. But if you have something that's of value that can help them, now there's no better time to talk to them. Like they're going to have to get back to business. They're going to have the right policies to get their travelers on the road. And if you provide something of value that's going to help them address what they need, you should definitely make sure you have the right objection handling set up for your sales team so they can have those critical conversations to help your customers and your prospects. And so a lot of focus has been on what our sales team needs right now in this environment. And of course, marketing, driving sales pipeline. What are we doing? Because not all the old ways are going to work. As you imagine, first of all, there's a different environment pre-COVID. You know, your general buyer mindset, people were focused on their function, right? They were focused on, you know, what I need to do in HR for maybe it's onboarding or recruiting or whatever. And now they're distracted. They're trying to figure out their employees. Maybe they're laying off people or furloughing people from an HR standpoint. And what does that need? How do they keep their employees that are there connected? And then post-COVID, how do they rebuild and ramp back up? And are you providing what they need in the stage that they're in and where their mindset is as a buyer? And can you become a trusted resource at this time for them by delivering value? It's less about selling and more about what are you delivering to them from a value standpoint to get them, one, to even take the call or talk with you, and then to move on to the stage of actually buying. And then what are the new tactics that you need to do? Because we know we can't do events, right? Events are gone and probably gone through the end of the year. And so there's a new way to interact. And what is that new way that the persona you're targeting, where do they get information? Who are their influencers? And how do you tap into that? You know, from a marketing standpoint, we're going to do what we've always done, but a little bit different. We need to build awareness with a wide net. We need to put content out there that people are searching for now, but at the same time, support our, you know, very targeted capture. You probably have targeted accounts or strategic accounts that you're working with your sales team on. What are you doing to help them get in front of that very specific account?
Meagen, can you share a few examples of things that creative ways that worked for you now on enterprise marketing?
Yes, it's coming. It's just after the slide, I promise. You know, this, how do we market in this world? Here is a funnel chart that I often show, which is the mix of things you have as a marketer in order to get people into the funnel and then get them through it. And as you can see, I've crossed out the things that are no longer in your toolkit, such as sporting events, trade shows, dinners, open houses, seminars. A lot of this has to move online. User conferences, direct mail even, right? People aren't in the office, so you need to be creative on direct mails, and I'll give some examples of what we're doing and actually what I've seen that have been creative ways to get to people. And so let's start with brand awareness. How do you drive the brand when these things are no longer available to you? We are doing things creatively around ads with our named accounts. For instance, with tools like Terminus, Bombora, you can take a certain account and do ads only to that account. So if I wanted to pick something like Okta's a customer, but if I was targeting Okta, I could put ads anytime someone from Okta is out looking for certain content, not just on your website, but other, you know, content syndication networks. Your ad can go up in front of them specifically. And even at some level, you can target personas. From a brand awareness, we launched a community in about 48 hours. What we realized 3 weeks ago is everyone had questions around coronavirus, the impact, what was the impact to my mileage plan, my hotel points, all these questions were flying around. And what we thought, well, we don't have a community and we don't have a tool. We quickly looked at, and we went with vanilla forums, but we looked at all the providers. We went on G2, we went out, we evaluated, and we had to pick software that was inexpensive, that we could stand up quickly. And while we were evaluating the technology, our content team was building a content plan. They were getting influencers to add content. They were writing. The social media team and the demand gen team was thinking about how we were going to launch this and promote the community. We stood it up in about, like I said, 48 hours, something that I don't recommend doing in 48 hours, something I would do in 1 or 2 months. But we were able to get it live. It was blue screen text out of the gate. It wasn't, you know, it took us about 3 or 4 days after we launched to make it look a little nicer, organize it differently. But one of the things your customers have is a lot of questions. So can you stand it up, bring them a community? And the other value that brings to you, like ours, if you go, it's community.tripactions.com. It sits on your domain, and where it helps you is traffic. It will bring people in, it'll be content, it helps from an SEO standpoint, and it brings a lot of value to prospects and customers, and maybe some new people who don't know your brand. Maybe they didn't know Trip Actions before, and it makes it easy to post all that content out online through social media channels. The other thing we did from an awareness standpoint is we were certainly feeling isolated. I mean, we're all about bringing people together and connecting, and here we were all at home. And yes, I think we've gotten to know our colleagues a little better because we see them in their home environment, but we were missing that connection. And we launched a campaign called Pass the Plane. We have a group in Facebook, and we just started videoing ourselves like creating and making paper airplanes. We felt like it was some paper, everyone should have paper or a bill or something they could fold up and pass. And we all have phones for the most part that we can easily record and post videos. And we started passing planes to each other as a company to bond and bring each other together. And then we posted it out on social, and we saw partners start to do it, and we saw families start to do it. I know my dad is isolated remote because of the age bracket that he's in. It's certainly a concern, and I pinged him, and he's always loved airplanes. He built one and videoed it and then threw it, and then he tagged my nephew who built it down in Albuquerque, and we saw this amazing thing that's reached over 5.8 million people. And it's, you know, it's not branded Trip Actions. It's not you know, I can't prove that anything will ever turn into sales, but it's a human connection. It's a way to you know, bring your community together in a time where I think people are still feeling isolated, alone, and odd. And so if there's ways that you can do creative things that bond you or bring your community together, I think you should. So that's an idea that we've been having a lot of, just creativity. It's sort of sad and sort of fun at the same time. And I've seen it go on LinkedIn and a bunch of different places, and companies I've never heard of are doing it. And so you know, find ways that you can be creative. I think now's the time to have people bond with your brand. I think that's one way you can do it. Of course, your customers, you know, working with them and social proof. I showed a quote, you know, a couple customers gave us quotes around how they're using the new features that we've built out around business travel continuity. I think that matters. And then we pivoted our content a lot, but you know, the SEO strategy, having the community, writing a bunch of content around blogs, inviting folks to come in and blog about the new topics. I think all of that is what you have to build your brand awareness in this new world of marketing. If you look at, here's more on the pass the plane. Give myself a moment. And then targeted ABM. Of course, you can't do in-person roundtables and dinners. Direct mail, I mentioned, is different. You can't send it to the office, but there are creative ways. I saw 2 companies pivot, Sendoso being one of them, where it used to be, you know, it connects into Salesforce. Snappy, I think, is the other one. And you can have your sales team send it out, but they've created it where you can now email your prospect or target and offer them something, and they enter their address that they want it sent to. Now, it's less of a surprise and delight in the moment when they receive something on their desk, but it's still a way to interact and offer them a care package. I wouldn't call it a gift. That seems weird in this day, but I would say some sort of care package or something to reach out. I received one myself. Someone started a CMO book club and sent me an email and said, hey, we're kicking it off. It's 30 people. Give us your address and we'll send you a book as part of the book club. And then we can come together in the next couple of weeks and talk about it. And I signed up and I gave my personal address because I thought it was a great idea. I need, you know, right now we all need to do continual learning and continue to, you know, learn. People will reinvent themselves. When you go into a recession and even a depression, people go back to school and they go back to community colleges and they need to learn. So there's a lot of insight in that. Your target audience needs to continue to build their skills. Maybe some of them are on furlough right now, so they have maybe the time. This is the right time for them to retool. So I think there's things you can do around that. We did thought leadership office hours that have been really successful the last 3 weeks. We've brought CFOs together for them once a week, travel managers together, procurement, and it's not about selling to them. It's about having them come together and solve problems and share ideas. And in the process, we have built relationships with not only our customers, but prospects that are now talking with us about using Trip Actions moving forward. And then of course, if you're not doing persona targeted messaging, you cannot send the same email to someone in HR that you do to finance. It's not going to resonate and they're not going to open your email and you're going to actually make your situation worse. So making sure your messaging is targeted to the personas. And if the personas have changed, ours have grown. We have more people involved with risk and compliance than ever before and procurement. So making sure we have the right messaging for them. And then of course, tracking where we can. And then, you know, I talked a lot about being a trusted resource with the community. You know, we are launching a podcast and we're getting a lot of influencers in space. We have a workshop tomorrow for people to come together and look at their policies that they need moving forward. They're going to start opening up travel routes, like route-based, we call it route-based recovery. And these workshops are going to bring travel managers together to figure out what's the right policy. How do I decide essential travelers and who can go where? And then wiki resource centers that will have a bunch of information for those different personas. And then I'm very excited. You know, I talked about recessions. Everyone goes back to community college. We're launching a travel manager and EA Academy. So you will get training and certification around your role as a travel manager, how to set up the best policies, how to integrate corporate cards, how to do duty of care, what are the best practices we've collected over time, so people can come out and be even more qualified to do their role, whether they're a customer or a prospect of ours. If they're on furlough, let them retool. Maybe they've lost their job but want to come out even stronger, and when they can go interview or start applying, they'll have certifications that they can take with them. So excited to see this launch. And then of course, different persona-based calculators based on, right now a big deal is a lot of people have canceled flights and you have credits. And the awesome thing is Trip Actions actually organizes your credits and automatically applies them when you go to travel. But you need reports for finance to understand the impact, to track them, how long you have to use them, and to apply them. And so there's a lot of things you need and different calculators for the different personas that we're creating to just continue to add value for our customers. And really the last slide on this one is for marketers, it's a true test. You know, we always talk about you need to be a revenue driver. Otherwise, you are definitely seen as a cost center. You're one of the largest spends next to T&E, you know, and it's a budget that that often you can shrink and grow pretty easily if it's not committed. And so just, you know, the final thing, if you're not a revenue driver, you're a cost center and you really can't afford to be. And I think you're seeing that in the last 3 or 4 weeks, that where people are cutting people and budget is on the marketing side. And so you really need to figure out how to drive revenue for the business. And I think this is a very big test for all marketers and CMOs, how they react and respond and deal with where we're at. And that was what I had prepared for today. But happy to take questions.
Well, you got the questions that people sign up and ask for, but you can also answer the questions that are people writing now. You can write them on chat, but you can raise your hand or go out of mute and ask the question. And I see we have one from Helena in the chat about the podcast.
All right, let me see it. Let's see here. Open that up. How did you go about starting? Oh, the podcast. So as far as the podcast, we have a pretty awesome content team that does a lot of our blogs. They do probably 7 blogs a week. And so what they did is they went about and we had to learn the technology. So we work with the systems, a marketing systems team to evaluate the different technologies. And then the content team worked on topics and polled our customers and prospects to understand topics that really mattered. And also content that we were creating. And then we reached out to influencers that we felt had something people would want to listen to. And so we created a calendar, and that's how we went about getting ready to launch the podcast. And we do have a main, one of our main content writers. She comes from the industry. One of the things I, have definitely learned here is hire writers from your industry. If you have, tech pubs or ours is BTN and Skift and a couple others, like hire people that know the industry. They're amazing writers and they're used to fast turnaround. They can write 1-2 blogs a day, and they know the industry, so they're able to write content that's relevant to your audience. So how big is the marketing team now? We're about half the size as we were a month ago, a little under 30. Did the situation push you to explore new distribution channels that you didn't use before? certainly. I mean, podcasts we weren't doing before. I hadn't built out a community before. You know, Twitter's blown up. We've always done Twitter, but I have noticed a ton of people are going back there. They're having conversations. They're posting content. They're interacting. So I think I've focused more on Twitter than in the past. Had you asked me a month ago, I would have said Facebook. Facebook still works, yes, and even LinkedIn for sure for content. But people are hungry right now. They're on these channels learning. They're at home. So all of that. I can't afford TV. So we're not on TV. If I could afford TV, people are certainly watching more of that than I think they did before. What do you think is an effective enterprise marketing strategy during COVID? What do you think about reducing, increasing? I mean, from the budget standpoint, I think most people are reducing budget. You know, the easiest place for me to slash was events. We had just ramped up from an event, a trade show standpoint. And so that was, you know, a no-brainer. We paused on digital ads and paid search for about a week and a half because traffic just died. You know, people were getting adjusted. They were working from home, but we've ramped that back up. We see traffic back up. We see leads back up. So I think probably most of us took a hit for about 2 weeks, but the good news is we're seeing the traffic come back. We're seeing leads come back, and all of that. I think I would be spending time and money. You know, when I cut back, I kept writers, I kept content, because I know right now what matters more than anything is adding value, writing content, sales enablement, you know, making sure people are coming to your site. And the way that you get traffic to your site when you don't have money is you write content that people need. SEO matters a lot. And when you do well, if you go to Alexa ranking, that will tell you how your domain's doing and how much traffic you're getting. When you do well on that, you also, it lowers the cost of paid search. So if you're getting traffic, Google and these search engines reward you for that, and it lowers your cost. So over the last year, we've gone, maybe we were on page 20 to page 1 because we put valid content that people are coming to. Having people link in helps a lot too. So if you've got content out there and people are linking to it, I think I mean, we're in the travel industry, so we've had a lot of great interactions with media and conversations about what we're seeing, our data. If you have a set of data that's valuable to the media and can provide insights, now's a great time to get in front of that and offer those insights, because the press does, you know, that is top of mind. There's a question in there around how do you do marketing when only people care about coronavirus? Well, if your product ties to it or is somehow linked, where we're business travel and the impact of that, you know, bringing that data forward matters a lot. One of the things that, you know, we can see is we have a lot of data on the different routes. We saw the routes as they shut down, and we have some predictions around which routes are going to open up first and next, as we're looking at the different curves out there by the different cities. So we'll continue to provide value from that standpoint. How do you do PR during coronavirus? I mean, we haven't done any press releases. I don't know, you know, we've launched products, but we didn't launch them through a press release. We first worked with our customers and provided them what they needed. And then we enabled our sales team to talk about it. And then of course we've updated our website, and we have blogs that are out there, and we're putting it out over social, and we have influencers and customers that are helping us do that. Okay, you're focused on travelers that got stuck during coronavirus. How much do they make out of your clients? Was it more to show that you care about your clients, or was there business value? I mean, so it's interesting, the question around travelers. We did not make money on getting our travelers home, for sure. So our model is very different than the industry that's out there. You have a booking, you pay per trip, and you can access support as unlimited amount of times, 24/7. Like, we're always on. So if you pay $25 to book a trip and you need to call or chat our agents 20 times, it doesn't cost you more. And as you can imagine, in a 2-week time frame, every person on the planet was chatting with our agent. We were 700% X our normal capacity for our travel agents, 700%. And our normal handle time is, our SLAs are under a minute, and we normally can respond within 27 seconds. I'm definitely proud of our travel agents. We kept it below 6 minutes. And for anyone that was traveling during that time that tried to get a hold of, tried to get their flight changed or hold, they were hours waiting. And our agents even took folks calling in from personal travel. We had one of our CEOs was in Asia and could not get had booked a trip with their family and could not get a hold of the supplier that, or the airline they were working with. And they actually called into our travel agents and we got them and their family home. Like we knew, like immediately focus on people and travelers. We will figure out the costs and all of that and deal with it. But if we don't take care of our travelers and our users, then we failed. Our mission is definitely, we're focused on the traveler first. So our agents were amazing and they worked extremely long hours. And we even, you know, we trained marketing and sales to step in if people needed help canceling stuff. It was all hands on deck as a company. And so definitely, I think a proud moment for our company stepping in and making sure we got our travelers home. So to answer that question, it was very much focused on your customers. I think if you're running a SaaS business right now, maybe some of the impact of what's happening will be delayed, but you need to focus on renewals, because when those come up, you need to make sure that you're providing value, because your customers right now, if they're going through cash preservation and controlling costs, they're going to evaluate their tech stacks and rank them. And you want to be above the line. And part of being above the line is delivering value to your customers and making sure you've taken care of them no matter what the environment is. So definitely heavy focus on customer success. Any tips on getting media coverage during this time? I mean, bring data. If you've got data that's valuable, or if you can survey your customer base or have interesting things that the media would care about, you should be doing surveys, different things like that. And you can take that and see, you know, you have to understand your media and what they care about. Every writer has a certain topic they focus on. If you're reading the news and they are covering a topic that is relevant to your company and the value you provide, you could reach out to that particular writer and pitch them on the idea. Let me see here. Let's see, it seems that companies are in a freeze. It says, it seems that companies are in a freeze when it comes to make a change. Are the sales processes prolonged? A startup CMO with no budget is asking. Fair. You know, certainly, I think, you know, I've done a lot of CMO roundtables in the last 2 or 3 weeks. I think across the board, people are seeing leads dry up, pipeline elongate, people pushing it out. That's where you as a marketer or a CEO right now need to figure out what value you add now and where you are from a sense of urgency standpoint. It's important that you're enabling your field to deal with any of these types of objections, and that your product has product market fit. And if you don't deliver something that they need right now, then you probably don't have product market fit. And you need to work with your engineering and build, and you need to be talking to your customers and figure out what they need. And if you do have product market fit, you will not see the velocity of your deals slow down because you'll deliver something they need. And maybe that's just messaging the right thing and making sure they understand what you deliver. So I think that's important. Okay, as far as messaging at a rapid pace, is it something you test method? Yes, and track in terms of direct ROI. We have changed messaging probably 3 or 4 times in the last 4 weeks because things have changed and we've delivered product that's needed. And, you know, normally you would have a much longer cycle and you would test it, and you would work with your top sales reps in the field, and they would test the message and come back and give you feedback on it. I mean, we're doing that in real time, right? You have less time, there's less luxury, I think, to test it in the market. And so you have to rapidly talk with you should have a customer advisory board. I would be talking to your customer advisory board on your messaging. Does this resonate? Certainly you're working with your top reps. You're sitting in on calls. You know, we use Chorus technology. I'm sitting in and listening to calls and how it's resonating. Our product marketing team is sitting in on live calls. They're listening to recordings. Like, how does it resonate? What is the pushback? What are you hearing? You know, talking with your sales leaders to understand what's working and what's not, and then quickly iterating on your messaging. So I definitely think that that's what you need to do and what will help. As a category defining company, what are the biggest challenges when launching new marketing initiative? How can they be resolved? Biggest challenges. I mean, anytime you're launching an initiative, you know, did you do the right homework if you had time up front that you're launching something that's needed in the market, that you've got, you know, I would say if you're launching something that you've got your alpha testers or your alpha customers that can talk to the value. You know, you probably did alpha and beta before you went GA. So what did you learn from that? What are your customers, what do they have to say about it? What's the content you've enabled your field with so they can talk to it? Have you updated your website? Are you telling a consistent story across all channels? All of that is important. Let's see. You mentioned the value of launching new solutions that answer new needs that the crisis created. What's your view on highlighting COVID-19 in your messaging? Do you think companies that do that could be perceived as if they're taking advantage? Certainly, all of it's true. Like all of us as marketers are worried that we're either coming across tone deaf, or that we're taking advantage of the situation. You know, you have to make you have to make the right call. If you go out there and put something out there that's not true, that's not valid, that has nothing to do with COVID-19, and you try to take advantage of the situation in the wrong way, you will not be rewarded for that. And you can potentially turn off your customers and your prospects. And so, yes, it's definitely a fine line. I don't know if we're fortunate to be in business travel, but certainly this is very relevant to our audience, and we have knowledge and we have information to help them. So I felt very comfortable with the way we approach what our customer needs. I feel very comfortable. We're very much around trust and transparency, what we're seeing, what's happening, what we can do to help, and in our PR as well. We do this, you know, we've been very open about these things. So I felt comfortable doing it. I don't, you know, I would have to understand your particular business and get a sense of what you're, you know, what you're putting out there, but I wouldn't tag myself to it if you didn't solve something that buyer needed that had to do with it. So I think you have to be aware of it. I think when you reach out to people, you can address it and say, you know, if you're a productivity app, or if you're something people need and it can help them work from home, or if it, you know, your sales team, if it's a remote thing, or you're trying to enable the field, like there's a lot of tools out there that we need right now more than ever. If you're targeting enterprise companies, you know, digital transformation has never been more important for them. They're finding themselves flat-footed, a workforce that they probably never had work from home, or very few, they now have to enable. If you're in the security space, you definitely have to think about things that they need around security, because, you know, normally they're at the office and they're secured on your Wi-Fi or internet or however you have it set up in the office, and now they're at home and you have no idea how they secure their laptop and their internet and their Wi-Fi. And, you know, there's a bunch of things that people need and companies need to give to their employees. So, I mean, there's certainly a lot of ways that the things that we're creating from a tech and software standpoint can help our potential buyers. So I think you need to find what that is and position it. What do you think about crowdfunding as a marketing tool? And I guess on that question, when you say do you mean crowdfunding for donations? So it's more of a brand, you know, getting people to come together and help healthcare workers, or like we see the airlines are changing their planes to do cargo to get people and equipment to certain places in need. Or I think it depends what the funding's going towards. I think if the sentiment is good and it's not self-serving, I think that's great. Or if you provide information and you don't have, like Wikipedia has been raising money to help get content and information out there. I mean, I think if you provide value, that you should donate, and people should help companies that are providing a service or something that's driving value for everyone. I think it depends. But I mean, I think if it's done well, that it's a fair marketing tool. You know, you're bonding your brand to your values, as long as it's to your values. And I think that's not necessarily a bad thing. Which B2B and B2C brands are doing amazing work right now? I mean, I think the one we all know is Zoom. Regardless of what we've seen, you know, they went from like 10 million people a day on their platform to 200 million. And they had no idea the whole entire world would be on their platform. And the fact that they gave it away to those 18 and under, I think is amazing. And, you know, sure, there's some things around security and other things, like until you have volume, you don't have a way to test. But I think I have a huge affinity to their brand. I'm so thankful for what they've done. I have 3 children. They're being homeschooled, you know, 10, 8, and 5. The ability for them to get on with classmates and to see their teachers, I think that's huge value. And I will, you know, that will stick with me a very long time. And the creative things that people like Snapchat has done, the filters that you can use on Zoom, I think are amazing. The way we can be creative. You know, think about it. If you're talking with customers, you could put their logo in your background, or if you're targeting someone and you know their alma mater and they have a certain thing they love, maybe you start the conversation with their alma mater on your background. Like, there's things we're going to do creatively in this new world to interact. If I was a CSM, you know, what do I know about my customer that they love? Can I do something to surprise and delight them? So I certainly think there's some brands doing some great work out there that are, you know, authentic and helping them. I like the brands that took their logos and separated them. I think that those were cool things, like McDonald's separated the arches. Like, you know, they get it. They understand, you know, what people are thinking about. I love the commercial that Uber put out there. You know, thank you for not taking an Uber right now. Like, thank you for not getting in, you know, traveling, and thank you for staying home. I'm like, that's so against what makes them money, but they know that that's what's important in keeping everyone safe. So you know, there's lots of examples out there that I've seen. And I think part of a marketer too is, you know, as a B2B marketer, I learn a lot from the consumer side. So I do follow consumer branding, advertising. I do follow some of the handles. I think Instagram and others, like what are they doing and how does that, I always try to think, wow, that gave me a really interesting response. How can I now apply that at Trip Actions? How can I take what got me to do something? Like, did I take a meeting? Oh wait, I just took a meeting. Why did I take a meeting? What did they do? Okay, how can we now take it? And if you ask my team, I always will get emails on certain things, and I'll forward them over to the team and go, we should do this. Like, what's our version of this? I think that's called market research. It's not called copying. It's what we do to be relevant. And yes, we'd love to have you listen to the podcast as well. Happy to share that once it's launched. Right to the different, can I share a percentage of allocation of my marketing budget? I mean, most of my people time is towards content creation and sales enablement. I would say we're not spending a lot except on paid search, except on content syndication in the right channels, but we're testing a lot and seeing the return on it. But we've definitely cut back a lot. Okay, plus, let's see. Did I answer? I printed out a list. I don't know if I got everyone's, you can't even see it because of my background. These background things are interesting. I'm going to see if I missed anything or if anyone wants to unmute and ask a question. Stay. I think we've gone through a lot of these.
Everybody feel free to unmute and ask your question. You don't have to type it in the chat. We have 5 minutes left, so this is time for the good questions.
Hey, this is Chris from Salt Security. I have a quick question.
Yes.
Yeah, first of all, congratulations on being able to shift quickly and adjust to the current conditions. But for those of us who have smaller marketing teams and smaller budgets, what are your recommendations on focus? You laid out a bunch of different activities, which would be great. But given limited resources, where do you think we would get the most bang for our buck?
Yeah, so one, certainly focus on product market fit. I mean, all startups, that's, if you want to take off, you nail that. So making sure the product's addressing the needs. Content, I mean, it doesn't, marketing aren't the only ones. I find CEOs are great at understanding what's going on out there. They tell the story over and over again. They're the best at telling the story. So either interviewing your CEO or writing blogs and content out there. If you've got those 10 customers or 20 customers in the early stage, any social proof matters a ton. Are they willing to give you a quote, or can you interview them? And then if they don't have time to write a blog, can you interview them and write that up? Can they, can you do, obviously you can't get in person, but can they do a phone video, or can you do a Zoom and you record them? Can you get them on a webinar? You know, leveraging your customers right now as much as you can. I think, you know, social media still does, you know, there's a lot that can be done on social media if you have the right influencers. You know, I would, as if I was in product marketing or even in corporate marketing, who are the influencers or the media that you can tap into? You know, things that don't cost money is if you have a good story and you have someone who will write about it that has a large audience. So can you figure out who that influencer is, that you've got something that's compelling enough for them to write about or respond to, or connect them to your customer to talk about what they're doing? There's a question here about leveraging Twitter. I mean, we have all our content we post out on Twitter. I would tag people. I think listicles are quite amazing. And you see that listicles are when you either tag companies or people, like the top, if your customers, you know, maybe the top, for us, the equivalent would be the top travel managers, or the top, if you're targeting marketers, the top marketers, and make a list of 100. And if you have 50 customers, I would be surprised if 50 of those marketers were, you know, in the list were from your customers, right? Like, can you find ways? And when you tag them in a LinkedIn post or a Twitter post, they all retweet it and like it, because everyone loves to see their name or their company in a listicle. And that doesn't cost money. You could create something that they want out there, out in the market, and tag them, and then they tag it out to all their networks, and then all their employees see it and they tag it, and all of a sudden you start to get some momentum going around your content. You know, in the last 3 or 4 weeks, we've had a lot of people create airplanes for Pass the Plane, and I invite all of you, if you want to do anything, create an airplane, throw it and tag it. You can post it anywhere, any channel you're on, and we'll find you if you do it. But those sort of things that people can do from home right now, that you can encourage them to do. But I do think small teams can do quite a lot. You know, you don't have to have a large marketing team. You have to be creative. I would do stand-up meetings. I meet with my leads every morning, make sure we're all up and ready at 8 a.m. We get on and we talk about the top things we're focused on, which were the 3 things I talked about. But what are we seeing? What are we missing? What can we do creatively? And then at the end of the day, I meet with the entire team and check in with them and ask for ideas. And I've asked everyone to brainstorm and give me ideas. Like, what are you seeing in the market? What got your attention? You know, it's what can you do to be creative, get in the market on it. You know, I'll give one example that I loved with, you know, there was the ad on Peloton, and they got a ton of heat around the woman and her husband and writing this thing, and the vodka company none of us had ever heard of quickly took the no-name actress and had her out having a drink with her girlfriends, reminiscing, right? Within like a week of that event happening. And it got so much attention, and everyone was laughing and writing about it on Twitter. Like, those moments are very hard to create, but when you find them, they don't cost a lot of money. And so you have to find your moment for your environment. What are you seeing? And can you come up with a savvy response that you can respond to that doesn't cost a lot of money? And are you, you know, pushing your 5-person team, your 5-person company, or your 10-person company to think about that, or to tag an influencer with an idea? Things like that.
So I think we're running out of time. It's already 12:30. So I wanted to thank you for an amazing presentation. I've been receiving and privately lots of amazing and wow moments about you. So thank you so much for taking the time. And I wanted to remind everybody else that we have lots of webinars, at least 2 a week, and we launched our one-on-ones on the website, so keep following.
Thank you. And I posted the link for the airplane challenge if anyone wants to go to it, or you can just search on it. But thank you
Also,
for having me.
we recorded this one and we're going to
Yeah.
post it as well if anybody missed anything. Well, thank you.
Thank you so much.